The babysitter was 19, home from college for the summer. She'd sat for this family before, a couple named Mark and Melissa, and their 2 kids, 7-year-old Emma and 4-year-old Lucas. Nothing about them had ever struck her as strange. Quiet neighborhood outside Portland, normal house, normal family. On this particular Friday, Mark and Melissa were headed to a wedding an hour away, home by midnight, they said. Before they left, Melissa pointed toward the staircase and mentioned one thing. There was a storage room upstairs, full of furniture they'd just moved in, and could she keep the kids out of it? That was the entire warning. Nothing dramatic. Just a housekeeping note. By 9, Emma was upstairs reading. Lucas was asleep on the couch downstairs. The babysitter had a TV on low when she heard it. Footsteps. Quick, small ones. Crossing the upstairs hallway, she called up. "Emma?" No answer. She went up and found Emma sitting on her bed, book open, completely still. "Were you running around up here?" Emma just looked at her. "No." The babysitter laughed it off and went back downstairs. 20 minutes later, the footsteps came again, louder this time. She looked up from the bottom of the stairs. The hallway light was on. And at the far end, by the storage room door, something small was standing there. For 1 second, maybe less. Then it was gone. She told herself it was Lucas. Then she remembered Lucas was on the couch, 10 feet away from her, sound asleep. She checked. He hadn't moved. Around 10:30, Emma came down for water, and the babysitter, trying to sound casual, asked again if she'd been walking around. Emma shook her head. Then, without being asked, she said, "Maybe it's the other boy." The babysitter smiled, assuming this was some kind of imaginary friend. "What other boy?" Emma pointed at the stairs. "He comes out sometimes. He doesn't talk." And then she went back up to bed, like she'd said nothing more interesting than the weather. At 11:15, Lucas woke up crying, and when the babysitter picked him up, he kept pointing toward the staircase. "Boy," he whispered. "He's in the hall." There was nobody there. She told him so. He didn't believe her, and honestly, neither did she, not really. A few minutes later, the footsteps started again. 3 steps, a pause, 3 more. And this time, when she looked toward the stairs, she saw him clearly. A boy. 6, maybe 7 years old, dark shirt, standing halfway down the hallway, with his face turned away from her. "Hey," she said, because it was the only word that came out. He didn't answer. She stood up. "Where are your parents?" He turned the corner and was gone. She ran up after him, checked Emma's room, empty. The bathroom, empty. And finally, the storage room itself. Old furniture, boxes, a broken crib. Nothing that could hide a child, and no child inside it. She called for Lucas out of pure panic and ran back downstairs. He was still on the couch, exactly where she'd left him. She checked every door, every window, all locked. She tried calling Mark, no answer. She tried Melissa, nothing. 15 minutes later, her phone lit up. A text from Melissa, "Everything okay?" She typed back, "Did you have another child?" The reply took a long time to come. When it did, it just said, "What do you mean?" She wrote, "I saw a little boy upstairs." Melissa called immediately, and when the babysitter answered, she could hear it in Melissa's voice before a single word came out. Real fear. Melissa said, "Don't go upstairs." "Why?" A silence stretched out on the line, and then Melissa told her something she'd never mentioned in all the times the babysitter had watched her kids. "Our son Daniel died before Emma was born. He was 6. It had happened almost 10 years earlier in a different house entirely, a house the family hadn't lived in for years. Emma had never been told much about him. Too young to understand, they'd figured. But Emma had talked about a boy in the hallway since the day they moved into this house, a house Daniel had never even set foot in. The babysitter asked if they'd ever seen him. No, Melissa said. Then, quieter, but the security camera has. She explained that the upstairs hallway camera occasionally caught movement they'd written off as a glitch. She told the babysitter to keep the kids downstairs and wait it out. When Mark and Melissa finally got home, they came in quiet, almost bracing for something. Melissa hugged the babysitter and apologized for not warning her sooner. Before she left, the babysitter asked one last question. Where did Daniel die? In our old house, Melissa said. Then why is he here? Melissa didn't answer that one. She never really did. The babysitter didn't go back. A few months later, though, she got a text from Emma, out of nowhere. It said, Mom says Daniel doesn't come out anymore. She asked why. Emma wrote back, because he found somewhere else to go. That was the last message she ever sent. This one's different. There's no dead child at the end of it. No name in a family photo. What happened in this house was never explained. Not by the parents, not by the police, not by anyone. And that's exactly why the babysitter says it's 2. And that's exactly why the babysitter says it's the one that still keeps her up. She was 22, sitting for a 2-year-old named Lily in a suburb outside Atlanta. The parents had recently wired the whole house with cameras, living room, kitchen, upstairs hallway, and Lily's nursery, because Lily had started making up screaming in the middle of the night for no obvious reason. The babysitter had done this job for them before, without incident. This particular Saturday, the parents were at a concert a few hours away and wouldn't be back until close to 2 a.m. She wasn't worried. She had the Monitor app on her phone, plenty of snacks, and a kid who usually slept straight through. Lily was down by 8:45. By 9:10, the babysitter checked the Monitor, asleep, fine, and settled in with the TV. Around 10, the Monitor made a clicking sound she'd never heard it make before. She looked at her phone. The camera in Lily's room, a fixed camera, no motorized lens, no remote controls, nothing that should ever move on its own, had rotated, slowly, toward the bedroom door. She went up to check. Door closed. Lily asleep. The camera itself looked completely normal in her hands. No loose screws, no obvious malfunction. She went back downstairs, unsettled, but telling herself it was a wiring issue. At 11:17, her phone buzzed. Motion detected, Lily's room. She opened the live feed. The bedroom door, which she'd left closed, was open on the screen. She ran up. It was closed. She opened it herself this time. Lily was fine. She left the hallway light on before heading back down, just in case. 17 minutes later, another alert. Door open again, on had not gone, but find fire. She went up, closed, in person, every time. It became a pattern she couldn't make sense of. The door was open on the phone and shut in reality, over and over, like the camera was showing her a different house. At midnight, Lily actually woke up crying, and when the babysitter picked her up, the toddler kept staring past her shoulder toward the corner of the room. Man, Lily said. What man, baby? Lily pointed at an empty corner. He hides there. The babysitter carried her downstairs and didn't go back up. 20 minutes later, another alert. This time, she made herself look. On the screen, Lily's door open, hallway light on, and a tall, thin figure standing perfectly still just outside the doorframe. She called 911 before she'd even fully processed what she was looking at. While she was on hold, the figure on the screen took one slow step backward and vanished from frame. She locked herself and Lily in the downstairs bathroom and stayed on the line until police arrived. Officers searched the entire house, every door, every window, locked from the inside. No sign of forced entry. No one hiding in a closet, an attic, a crawl space. Nothing. They pulled the camera footage. The hallway camera had recorded the figure standing there. That much was real. That much everyone saw. But it had never once recorded anyone walking into frame. No footage of a person entering the hallway. He was just suddenly there, and then he wasn't. One officer suggested a reflection, a trick of the infrared. Nobody in that living room really believed it, including him. The parents got home around 3. The mother went straight upstairs and came back down holding an old wooden box of photographs. And this is where the story almost turns into the same kind of reveal as the first one, except it doesn't quite. She told the babysitter the house had belonged to her grandfather, and that years earlier, when she was a kid herself, a man had broken in and hidden in that same upstairs hallway closet before he was caught. She remembered seeing him standing outside her bedroom door once, before police found him. She said the figure on the camera looked like him. The babysitter asked if he died. No, the mother said. He's still alive. Records showed he'd been released from prison years before the family ever moved into the house, and had no known connection to it since. So there was no ghost story here with a tidy ending, no dead relative to explain the footage. Just a decades-old memory of a stranger, a man who was alive and somewhere else entirely that night, and a camera that had recorded something standing in a hallway with no way of ever having gotten there. The next morning, the father found one more clip the police had missed, time-stamped 2:58 a.m. The hallway, empty. Then the image froze, just for 3 seconds, and when it resumed, the camera had turned itself toward Lily's crib, and something was standing beside it. He deleted the recording. He never told the babysitter what was in it, and when she asked, he just said it wasn't something she needed to carry around. The family moved out 2 weeks later. They never gave a reason. As far as the babysitter knows, no one ever explained who or what was in that hallway. It's the only one of these 3 stories where nobody got an answer. This is where we came in. The babysitter was 17, and this was her first night with a family she'd never met before. A couple who lived 20 minutes outside town, down a long road with nothing else on it. 3 kids, 10-year-old Evan, 6-year-old Sophie, and 4-year-old Noah. The house itself was old, 2 stories, surrounded on all sides by woods, close enough to touch the windows. The parents gave her a quick walkthrough, said the kids would likely be asleep by 9:30, and then the father gave her one instruction that didn't match the casual tone of everything else. Don't answer the upstairs bedroom door. She laughed, assuming it was a joke about a picky kid or a messy room. It wasn't. He said the door had a broken lock and sometimes swung open on its own. If it opened, just close it. That was all. By 10, the kids were down and the house was silent, in the particular way old houses get, full of small sounds that mean nothing until they start meaning something. At 10:45, a door slammed upstairs. She went to check, found the hallway dark, and at the far end, the door the father had mentioned, standing shut. She closed it firmly and went back down. 5 minutes later, open again. She closed it. It opened. She closed it a third time, placed a chair against it, and went back downstairs, chalking it up to the broken latch, even though the chair should have made that impossible. At 11:30, footsteps. Slow ones, coming from upstairs, though nothing was visible on the staircase. Then a child's voice, clear as anything. "Can you come upstairs?" She assumed it was Sophie and started up. "Are you okay?" Silence. Then, "I'm in here." The voice was coming from behind the closed door, the one door she'd been told specifically not to open. She remembered the warning. She didn't touch it. Instead, she called Sophie's name and heard, from the other side of that same door, the unmistakable sound of a little girl crying. She opened it anyway. She couldn't not. The room was empty. Old bed, dresser, a broken lamp, nothing living in it. She checked all 3 kids, asleep, all 3, exactly where they should be, and went back downstairs with her hands shaking. At 12:05, the father called to check in. She told him about the door. Long silence. Then, "Did you open it?" "Yes." "Listen carefully. Do not open it again." He told her finally what he should have told her before he left. The room had belonged to his younger sister, who had died at 8 years old. The family had left it mostly untouched ever since, and his own kids had grown up hearing a little girl crying inside it from time to time. He'd never had anyone stay there overnight before, not once, and he was already turning the car around. While she waited, she kept all 3 kids close, downstairs, lights on. At 12:32, the footsteps started again, this time on the stairs themselves, one slow step at a time, the wood creaking under weight that wasn't visible. Then a voice, right behind her, "Why won't you look at me?" She turned, nothing there. She grabbed the children and moved for the front door. Behind her, upstairs, the pounding started, hard, deliberate, on wood, and then the bedroom door slammed open on its own. The kids were crying. She had the front door half open when Noah tugged her sleeve and pointed back up the stairs. "She's coming," and there she was, 8 years old, white nightgown, hair over her face. Standing at the top of the stairs, one hand slowly rising to point, not at the babysitter, not at the children, but back toward that bedroom, as if she needed someone to go in and finish something she couldn't. Behind the babysitter, that same whisper, "Please." She ran, all 3 kids, out the front door into the village driveway, and she didn't stop until the parents' headlights came up the road. The father's face went white when she described the girl. He went inside and came back with a photograph. Same hair, same nightgown, same face. His sister. "How did she die?" the babysitter asked. "She disappeared from her room one night. We found her body in the woods 3 days later." He pointed toward the tree line behind the house. Then he said the detail that never left the babysitter, not once, in all the years since. She was found standing upright. Her hands were folded in front of her. That was the last night the babysitter ever worked for that family. Years later, she heard the house had been sold. The new owners lasted less than 6 months before moving out, telling a neighbor they couldn't stop hearing a child crying upstairs. During the renovation before the sale, That upstairs bedroom, the one with the broken lock, was removed entirely, torn down to make way for an extended hallway. And when the crew pulled the old wallpaper off the interior wall, they found a small handprint pressed into the plaster underneath. Not on the outside of the wall, on the inside, the side that had faced into a room that, by them, no longer existed. Too small to belong to an adult. No explanation for how it got there, or who left it, or how anyone could leave a handprint on a surface that had been sealed for years before it was ever opened again. The babysitter says one detail still sits with her more than any other. That night, at the top of the stairs, the girl never once looked at the children. She was only looking at her. And her mouth had been moving the entire time. No sound, nothing audible, until the babysitter saw the photograph and finally understood what words she'd been mouthing over and over the whole time she stood there. Run.